There we go. Tell you what, man. Good music always starts a show with energy. That's what we want.
Definitely, right? I'm so glad I stopped dancing before you turned my camera on. So thank you for that, Steve. No one wanted to see that.
Welcome to the Podcast Editor Mastermind Show. It is now being hosted this week by me, myself, Steve Stewart, and my business partner in the Podcast Editor Academy over here. His name is...
Hey, I'm Mark Deal.
That's right. We're going to be talking today about what is new for season 2 of this show. For those who have listened to the show for 4+ years, the 4 founders of the mastermind were actually in a mastermind. They were getting together. They had been on a weekly meeting and everything. And then they thought, why not take this to the masses? And they created a show. And the show went on for 4 years, 100 episodes. But it became inconsistent and it took up a lot of their time. And I'll tell you what, things change. The season has changed, which is why we're going to be talking about season 2 and what we hope to bring to this community of podcast editors. We talk about podcast editing and all things podcast editing, post-production. For the next, I don't know, how many episodes? 100? Shall we go 100, Mark? Can we commit?
Wow, that's a big... I like to commit one season at a time, although we haven't really defined what a season is. But mad props to the Yetis for season 1. You and I have been both big fans of that because we did the launch of Podcast Editor Academy, which a lot of folks know us from the Editor Conference and the Editor Academy. And we were thinking about doing a podcast and they're like, oh, the Yetis got their show. Let's applaud them. Let's promote them and be as active as we can for them. Even there for like episode 1, taking pictures and everything backstage. So yeah, obviously we're huge fans of the show and now we have an opportunity to kind of take it over and hopefully we do the show spirit justice. And that's my hope.
Yeah. And good news. The Yetis are not gone. We're actually going to have Carrie Caulfield on with the next episode coming up in a week. And we'll talk more about that later with Jennifer Longworth in the chat room. So she'll be watching the chat for us. In fact, if you've got something you want to add, please, here's True Media Solutions from Ontario, Canada. Dave, I think I was just talking to Dave on another Facebook chat. Here we've got Jennifer, the original Yeti.
OG.
Yep. And of course, hey, Patrick. Can't be an episode without Patrick here in the chat, right?
Nope, it certainly can't.
Mark and I have got some things we want to share with you about what we expect to happen. Expect means there's variables in there. What we're expecting to happen in season 2. This is season 2, episode 101. What we want to do is, and this is something I've always wanted with the Mastermind show, as a fan of the show, I was like, let's have more Mastermind chats and stuff like that. In fact, they had quite a few of those. I thought they were great. They had a guest on. Mark, you call them guest insight seekers?
I call them guest experts because the people that have been on episode season 1 are really experts in their field, a particular niche, maybe not have mastered everything, but they really master in one or perhaps a small part of what they do. And the Podcast Editor Mastermind, the show for the last 4+ years has really brought that out and said, hey, look, this is how this person is using this channel or business practice or what have you to really accelerate what they've done. And of course, they started with some of the original questions. How'd you get your first client? Those sort of things. So that's one element that we want to keep.
Yeah.
That being said, we want to enhance it with a little bit more. Did you want to go into that, Steve?
You talk about the guest insight seekers.
Guest insight seekers. Thank you, Steve. So yeah, we wanted to kind of distill it down to its essence to where us as fans of the show, we were, wanted to hope that it would go in season 2. And now since we're kind of, driving the wheel, we can somewhat do that. So going forward, it'll be Steve and I, or maybe Steve or I, and a guest expert, somebody who's an expert in their field, as well as a guest insight seeker, someone who is not an expert, who is not afraid to say, hey, I don't know. I had these questions. This is what's challenging me in, let's go ahead and call it 2025, going forward now in this landscape where Steve and I started, before 2025, obviously, and really kind of get some of those thoughts, those feels from the guest insight seekers. They can come on with, full anonymity, or they can come on as themselves, but really make it a place to where guest insight seekers can ask a question like, hey, I've got this question. How are people tackling it? So Steve and I, or Steve or I, and a guest expert can share their opinions on what's worked in the past, as well as kind of allude to where things are going into the future, as you and I have both kept our fingers on the pulse of the podcast editing industry.
And I can tell you, that's going to be an accomplishment if we can pull that off on a regular basis, because getting 3 people together is good. Getting 4 is hard, as the Yetis could tell you.
We'll do our best. And there's obviously still going to be somewhat of a transition because Steve and I, we've got the Podcast Editor Club, Podcast Editor Academy, places where people know us. Now we're adding Podcast Editor Mastermind, but we still have this legacy calendar of the things and the live events that we are doing. So some of it will be somewhat of a transition in the next month. I think the next 1 or 2 episodes is a lot of the things that we had on the calendar for Podcast Editor Clubs and Academy. Let's make it for Podcast Editor Mastermind and really enhance it with this channel. And I think there's some of the things, for example, like having Patrick on would really enhance those things that we're going on in the future. So the next episode or 2 may seem maybe a little familiar for those of you that have been following Steve and I for a few years, or maybe new to you if you're familiar with Podcast Editor Mastermind and new to Steve and I. And then from there, it's going to transition more to what we were talking about. Guest expert, guest insight seeker, and Steve and I are on the show as well.
And one of those things that Mark was kind of referring to, we just did last week. It was about stress, loneliness, and depression. And that was absolutely not something that I would bring usually into an academy, but they were asking for it. And I was already setting it up. And then this mastermind thing came across. I'm like, oh, maybe we could make it. Didn't work out, but it's still going to be something like that. We're going to have experts on to talk about a specific topic that's going to impact podcast editors, their workflow, their mindset, their business, as far as profitability, all kinds of things. I have got some ideas. In fact, I have a whole list of ideas. I want to make this more like a traditional podcast where I sat and recorded the things, but that doesn't happen when we're interacting with live people. And we may not always be doing a live stream, but we've got some ideas. So we're going to be doing some recorded stuff too that you guys want to stick around to hear about. So that was the first big thing. And then other things, just as a side note, for people who know the Podcast Editors Club, they know that it's all about post-production. We don't talk at all about podcasting. We don't talk about microphones, mixers, media hosts, stuff like that. We might talk about the tech that we use inside the media host, but we don't talk about, hey, which media host is the best? We don't talk about which microphone is the best. But in this environment, we might go into those topics. We might get into that, but more of a coaching manner, because I do think that podcast editors can, and we'll see in the survey reveal, when you have these coaching services, you can actually increase your bottom dollar in what you charge for your editing service as well. So we want to be able to expose more people to the good information that's out there, hopefully dispel some of the bad information that's out there, and get some experts in here to talk about really what's happening out there and how we can impact how our clients are doing their thing.
Definitely. It's always been interesting because we focus on post-production, but there is that blurred line with a professional podcast producer, editor, manager, whatever you want to call them, or whatever you want to call yourself. And when clients are asking you questions of like, hey, does this microphone sound okay? Or what's the best audio chain or some things? And as Steve alluded to, there's been some topics where we don't talk about here. We're just talking about post-production. But as the lines get blurred and as certain AI technologies are taking over some of the other aspects, like we get to promote ourselves like, hey, well, we know how the sausage is made, from the moment you press record, sometimes before you press record, as far as getting your clients' guest experts on and sounding good, and as all the way through to production, to publication and promotion. So we plan to tackle a little bit of that on season 2 of Podcast Editor Mastermind.
Yeah, we're definitely hoping to make this show, even though it's the Podcast Editors Mastermind, we're hoping to make it better for even producers, managers, those who might be doing guest bookings, the things that are prepping and getting ready, all the way down to where the people are hitting record. So hopefully it'll benefit all the people, not just the editors, although we're focused on our niche because our niche is nobody talks to editors. They're always talking about podcasting. So that's why I love this community, is because we get to talk about the nerdy back end stuff.
Definitely. And who is served.
Yep. So the big change coming up, Mark, you want to walk through this, and we've got a coupon code coming up for this thing.
Well, the coupon code kind of alluded to it, so thank you for that, Steve. So as many of you know, we closed the doors to Podcast Editor Academy a few months ago. Now, the back end of Podcast Editor Academy is still running. We just basically closed it for new members. So new people could not and currently cannot join at the moment of this recording Podcast Editor Academy. In fact, we've got a relaunch date or reopen date, however you want to call it, Steve, in the future. That gives us an opportunity when the possibility of the Podcast Editor Mastermind and us kind of helping out to take it into the future came along. There was a gap that we were able to fill. So one of the things that we are doing is we are now launching a membership through Podcast Editor Academy, through the website, for Podcast Editor Mastermind. Now, that is going to be a substantially different type of membership from the full-on academy that we've been running for about 6 years now, as far as like all the courses and modules and scripts and office hours and things like that. But there's things going on with Podcast Editor Mastermind that we wanted to keep, but we wanted to do it in a sustainable way. And for us, a sustainable way is the ability to pay our editor, right?
Steve, Alejandro.
Exactly, Alejandro. Yep. And through that, one of the things we're going to do is launch a membership for Podcast Editor Mastermind. And
I had the URL there. I had the URL on the screen.
Just go to podcasteditoracademy.com. Now you'll see a button. The survey button is gone. If you're a member of either the Mastermind or the Academy, you can log in and it'll take you to the appropriate place. Obviously, Academy members, as always, you have access to this and everything that we've ever done. But now Mastermind members have the ability to go in and join the Podcast Editor Mastermind group. And from there, we have the live production of this. And that's something we'll talk about in a moment as far as how we're going to be doing the live show, as well as an ability to submit yourself for either if you want to be a guest expert or a guest insight seeker, there's a form right there. Or if there's a topic that you want to hear about on a future show, there's a form right there. There was a couple courses inside the Academy. Steve and I were looking at it like, all right, what can we add? Obviously not the full Academy experience, but what are some of the courses inside the Academy that we can make available to, say, someone who's a Podcast Editor Mastermind member, just to give them a little bit more insight and kind of get them going along without being the full Academy member. Being said, so Coupon Season 2 currently, that will make Podcast Editor, it sounds so weird saying this because it's so cheap, Steve. The Podcast Editor Mastermind membership would be $10 a month. Join anytime, cancel anytime. And it's just $10 a month if you use the coupon code Season 2. You'll see a thing on there that says have a coupon. Click that, type in Season 2. You'll see our current price, and then that price will get knocked down by over half to just $10 a month. And if it's not for you, you can always leave at any time.
Yeah, and the key for that is that you're going to get that access to, well, you're able to submit questions, submit yourself as a guest or an expert. We're going to get those topics that are heaviest on the minds of the people who are really into this, not just the general public who might be watching a live stream. But we're going to get those people who are really interested in getting the answer to their problems. We're going to get them answered right away. Not right away, but I mean, they're going to be addressed first. Where people who might have questions they send me via email or it's in the Facebook group or something like that, is that really going to become a mastermind topic? I don't know. But we're going to have this in this mastermind membership where the live stream is going to be about that topic. We're going to try to find the expert for that. Or we have an expert. We're going to have everybody come and join and watch that for the live stream. And then the recording of that will come out later. So there won't be a live stream like we're doing now in these future mastermind episodes.
Public live stream.
The public live stream. That's what I should say. Thank you,
Mark. We'll be live. Yeah, we'll be live with flubs and everything.
Right, to everybody who's in the membership.
Exactly.
Yeah. And with a couple of accesses to courses that we have, or access to a couple of the courses that we have in the Academy, I think it's a pretty good deal for, what'd you say it was going to be now? $10?
Currently $10 a month. So
USD.
More than half off. US dollars, correct.
That's good.
Yep. Join anytime, cancel anytime as we record this December of 2024.
You'll be able to submit your questions. Is that going to be the same as the Academy members?
So Academy members that are watching the show, hey, Academy members that have supported the podcast editing industry and have gotten so much insight from us, as well as build the industry to where it is today. Glad to say that rates are going up, but hey, that's more on the next episode 102, right? I don't want to allude too much to that. But obviously, Podcast Editor Academy members have access to the mastermind and everything. So if you look at the nav menu, when you log in, you'll see mastermind right there to your dashboard. You'll be able to watch live, submit questions, submit guest expert or guest insight seeker, basically everything that a podcast editor mastermind member can do. But of course, you have the access to the entire Academy as well. So you can back out of that and go into the all the Academy resources that we have. That being said, the recordings will still become a syndicated podcast. So right. If you're not ready to pay a monthly fee to be a part of a mastermind in your industry and participate live on these recordings and submit the questions and the feedback and things that currently we do right now, that's okay. this will still be a syndicated recorded audio podcast for those in the future. And perhaps the recordings may become available as well. I think we were talking about that. The recordings will become available as well. And there just may be some delay from the live time to when all the editing and everything gets done. So, and as Steve, you and I, we were going through our content calendar for 2025. There's a lot going on between the mastermind, the academy, and the club. So a lot of things are happening as some of that content builds up. The backlog from the live shows to the syndicated podcast, that delay may get a bit longer. But obviously, if you're a member of the academy or the mastermind, you get access to the live recordings as well as immediate access. When we're done pressing live, if you want to watch the replay that we did like an hour or a day ago, you can get that before Alejandro makes us sound even better than we actually are.
Yeah, so we'll go out in a stream in some form or fashion later. So don't worry. The mastermind's not actually going away or being hidden away from everybody. It's going to be there for everyone to be able to benefit from. But we do want to give access to those who are really interested in it the most. And of course, we want to learn from people who are looking for those answers right away. We want to get that. I want to find out what is the pain point that they're addressing today. Like the last few months, video editing. Of course, that's the biggest question.
Yeah, we have a lot of insight from that, either through the insights and feedback that we get through the academy, as well as the survey. And also there's some insider knowledge. I don't want to disclose any companies, but there's some insider knowledge with various companies and what they're feeling like their client base is drifting towards to or away from, that we can kind of incorporate in some of these as well. So there's a lot of new things coming around the corner in 2025 that we're excited to put into the Podcast Editor Mastermind format, as well as including the guest experts that have always been here and the addition of guest insight seekers.
So that's what we've got going on for season 2. I think we covered it all. There's one thing I want to mention. It's not a fun thing, but I realized the other day that there's a lot of redundancy in what we're doing, Mark. And I think everybody can understand this. If you've got different platforms, let's just say social channels, you got all these different social channels and you're trying to manage them all, it gets to be a little confusing. Well, I just realized that the Mastermind Facebook group is largely being neglected. And a lot of the stuff that happens over there is pretty much what we do in the Podcast Editors Club. So we're going to try and consolidate those two groups. We're going to try and get people from the Mastermind group to come over to the club if they're not already there. I imagine most of them are already there. And then eventually in a few weeks, we're going to shut down the Mastermind Facebook group. And I know people don't want to hear that, but there's all these people trying to join. I'm like, I haven't checked to see if people want to join. And they want to get on this email list where it's like, wait a minute, come over here and get on this email list. Anyway, we're going to try and consolidate things and make it easier, at least for Mark and I to manage all this in 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. 5 if you include the clothing line, but that's really kind of...
Okay. That's all you, Steve.
The Podcast Editors Club Facebook group, the Podcast Editor Academy, Podcast Editor Conference, which we need to do something again and someday in the future, and then the Podcast Editor Mastermind, and then the Podcast Editor Clothing.
That's all you, Steve.
Yeah.
So, Steve, I don't know if you were checking on, I've seen some of the comments, and then I checked the back end. People like it. In fact, we've already had a couple people sign up as we were talking about this. We see you. We appreciate you. Thank you. You signed up and used the coupon. And now I need to turn this off. It's going to be I see things come in. It's going to be I think it's a great offer, especially considering no one can join the academy right now, Steve, at least for another few months. So this is really a way to kind of get a snippet of that, unless you're a full Academy Legacy member.
Yeah. And one of the reasons we close the doors to accepting new members in the Academy is to focus on our existing Academy members. And this is definitely going to be a way where we can serve Academy members, but then also Mastermind members in the same shot. I think it's going to be great. I can't wait. Yep. So that's the updates for season 2. I do want to talk about a couple things that are coming up. Now, the next Mastermind show will actually be the survey reveal that we do every year for the podcast editor industry. We're doing the 2024 survey reveal on Thursday, December 12th, exactly 1 week from today. Mark's got all the figures. He's got all the numbers. He's going to have the graphs. He's going to have all the anecdotes. He's going to have all the information, all the good stuff that we're going to be providing. And we're going to do it on the Mastermind show because usually we do it on live stream anyway. We may as well do it along with the Mastermind show. And then we usually got invited to the Mastermind show to talk about it anyway. So again, consolidating. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's funny in the past, because this will be our 6th year doing this editor survey in the level that we've done it before. I think there's some legacy information before that, but It's funny. We always did this editor survey reveal in the Podcast Editor Academy and the club. And we've always made this public. This is not something that we put behind a paywall. The current year, we let everybody know. Editors, your potential clients, everyone know, like, hey, these are the rates that people are charging globally and some of the factors that influence it. But Steve and I, usually we get an invite to come on the Podcast Editor Mastermind afterwards to talk more about it. Well, now we get to do it all in one shot.
I can't wait to, because I love the survey results. They just are, it's so encouraging. I always get feedback from people saying, oh, okay, now I've raised my rates because of the survey you guys did.
Well, it looks like that trend is continuing, which everyone should expect, right? Especially with the way the global economics have been going. Everything costs more now. So it looks like the rates are also going up. And I'm sure we'll dive much deeper into that in episode 1 and 2 of Podcast Editor Mastermind.
Yeah. And that one will be live streamed out to the public. You don't have to register for that thing, but you might want to get a reminder. If you want to go to podcasteditoracademy.com/live stream reminders, that's for any publicly available live stream. It's going to let you know when something like that is going to be available. Although I think most of it's going to be mastermind stuff in the future. This is all changing.
Well, yeah, it's changing, but it's also holiday season. We have our holiday calendar, so we may invite mastermind members into our holiday party that we do every year, our virtual party. Anyone hasn't seen my ugly sweater, I apologize in advance, although I do have a new hat now to wear for the holidays. But
oh, yay.
Yeah, so it's a weird time for Steve and I because we've got the things that we've done in the holidays for the Podcast Editor Club, Academy, the industry, and now plugging that in with Podcast Editor Mastermind. So the next episode or two may be a little different than what you're used to, but then we're going to get back into, all right, this is where we want to go for season 2.
All right. Well, I think we're going to sign off after this. Just remind everybody, you can go to podcasteditoracademy.com and click that button that says, what does it say now? It says join Mastermind. And that way
join Mastermind. Yeah, because again, no one can join the Academy right now, at least not for a few more months. Obviously, Academy members, there's still that button. And whether you're a Mastermind member or an Academy member, click that button, log in. It's going to send you to the right place.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching this short and brief update on the Podcast Editor Mastermind. Like I said, next week, we'll be doing the survey reveal. We're going to have Carrie Caulfield with us and Jennifer Longworth in the chat.
OG Yeti. Oh.
Yep. 2 OG Yetis with us. One will be on camera. One will be in the chat. And I can't wait. It's going to be fun. So make sure you get on the newsletter, getting the live stream reminder so you don't miss that. And of course, we'll keep you up to date on what the advancements are here in the Mastermind.
Excellent. Steve, right. I'm excited.
Me too. I'm excited. And here's the music that shows. I was really actually nervous because I don't know. This is podcasting, and I haven't been podcasting in 8 years. But now there you go. So
yeah, I get to wear my podcast content creator t-shirt since I'm actually a podcaster, not a producer on the
all right,
show.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you in a week.